if the bottom isn't factored, you want to factor it, right? That's your first step. So what you would do is you would try and factor this, and I'm going to notice first that there's 4 terms in this, okay? And so I could try factoring by grouping. So I'm going to factor by grouping on the bottom. So it's still 5x plus 7 on the top. I just want to figure out what this bottom is, okay? Well, on these first 2 terms, I can take out an x squared. So I get x plus 2. And then on these second 2 terms, I can take out a negative. So we get x plus 2 on both of these things, right? Okay, so this would factor as, we can factor by grouping now, it would be x squared minus 1 times x plus 2, okay? And so when you get this set up here, we've factored it a little bit. Can it factor any more? Does this x squared plus 1 or x squared minus 1 factor? Yes, it does. It factors into x plus 1 and x minus 1, right? Something that multiplies to negative 1 and adds to 0. Okay? So once we've factored that all out, we're ready to do our partial fraction decomposition. Now you might think, this seems super scary. It's actually not as bad as the other one because there are no repeated factors on the bottom of this one, okay? So what should my answer look like at the end? Now that I have it all factored out, it should look like, well, I just look at my first factor is x plus 1. So it would be a number divided by x plus 1 plus another number divided by my second factor, x minus 1. Right? There's no repeated factors, so I don't have to do anything weird here. Okay? And then my third factor of a number divided by x plus 2. Okay? Now this one will actually be a lot faster than the other one because there aren't any repeated roots. So maybe I will just go through it, finish it off for us of how would I find A, B, and C. Okay? So let's do that. I'll just scroll maybe a little bit here. So we have some space to work with this. How do I find A, B, and C? Well, what would I do? I always times by the bottom through the whole equation, right? So I'm going to be timesing this by x plus 1, x minus 1, and x plus 2. Okay? So just timesing by the bottom through the whole equation, and I get, this bottom cancels out, I get 5x plus 7 is equal to, well, when I times this guy by this, the x plus 1's cancel out, and I just get A times x minus 1 times x plus 2. Those are the only things that survive there, okay? Plus B, well, when I times this by this, okay, my x minus 1's cancel out, and I get x plus 1 and x plus 2 left over. Those are the only things left over. C, when I take this guy and times it by this, the x plus 2's cancel out, but everything else is left over. So I get x plus 1 times x minus 1 here. Okay? So, to actually do this, to find what what A, B, and C are. Now I plug in numbers, okay? So I'm going to set x equal to +1, because that will make this 0, and that will get A out of the equation, okay? So when I set x equal to 1, I get 5 plus 7 is 12 equals, this part is 0, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, so we've got 3 times 2 is 6, so we've got 6b, okay? 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 minus 1 is 0, so this is all 0 here. So just plus 0, 6b is 12, so we get b is 2. Okay? Now to get the other values, I would set, where will this be 0? It would be 0 at -2. So I'd plug in -2, and you'll notice this is 0, this is 0, so A and B would cancel out of the equation, and what I'd be left with is C, okay? So I'll do that first real quickly. 5 times -2 is -10 plus 7 is -3 is equal to -2 plus 1 is -1 times -3. So that would give us +3, C. Divide by 3, we get C is -1. And then lastly, set x equal to, well, we've already covered where those two are 0, so 1 and -2, so I'll plug in -1 into this equation to find what x, or what my last variable is, what A would be, okay? So I plug in -1, I get -5 plus 7 is 2 equals -2, +1, so -2a. And then when I plug in -1 for this is 0, that just goes away. -1 in here, -1 plus 1 is 0, so this is also 0, that won't make a difference. So we get -2a equals 2. So in other words, A is -1, okay? So to write my final answer, I would just put the -1 on top of this, the 2 on top of the x minus 1, and the C, -1 over x plus 2. And that would give me my partial fraction decomposition, okay? So I'm taking a bow because I'm sure you're all applauding at this point because of how beautiful this is. I know this is terrible to go through. It really is a long process, and there's just a lot of letters and numbers going on, okay? Do some practice with it. Do the homework. I think it'll come to you, but let me know if you do have questions on the homework that the key doesn't help with, okay? And I'd be more than happy to explain those, okay? Have a good day. Stay safe out there. I will see you hopefully in a few weeks or so. We'll see how it goes.